Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC. I'd like to pretend that was done first time and seamless and everything else. So, yeah, I messed up the intro backstage. Luckily, I didn't go live, so none of you saw that, apart from the two panelists we got with me. For the first time ever, by the way, we've done a preview and review with exactly the same panel. So this should be fun. Charlie, hope you're doing well as well. I know you're not in the comments yet, but I'm sure you will be. But I hope you get better soon. Obviously, we'd love to have Charlie here to discuss particularly the Rachel Williams goal, but unfortunately not today. But she can make her feelings known in the comments. So that's fine. So much to get through on this one. Obviously, we won the game. We're top of the league, clean sheet. You think all was great, but performance was something to be questioned, that's for sure, as we go through for the next hour or so. Let's just dive straight into it then. I'll get your initial thoughts both on the game. Barry, like I said, we won the game, but you wouldn't really think it. And to be fair, watching the game, I didn't really feel like, even when we won, I was a bit like, yes, yeah, thank God. You know, if you, I said it in one of our chats, if you don't enjoy a late winner, then football's just not for you. But then when you calm down a bit and you watch the game back, you're like, oh, okay, this wasn't great. But how did you feel on the game overall?
Well, obviously not overjoyed. We all sat there and were hoping we were going to get 3, 4, 5. I mean, the 7, not even close. That 7-0 that we were hoping for with Carol. She's sent us down the garden path there. You're never going to get 100% entertainment, brilliant value for money football every single time you go to watch it. So there's always going to be some tricky ones. And this was a tricky one. Mark Skinner said it right from the very start that it was going to be a hard game, that Reading weren't any mugs and that we needed to pay attention to. And that was kind of how it turned out. I think the most important thing to me was that we got 3 points. And as I tweeted out yesterday, for me, this time last year, that would have been 0-0, game over, just a point. Here we are today, 1-0, 3 points, and it puts us to the top of the league. So is it the showing, as TJ's put there, that we wanted? No. Is it an improvement from last season? Ironically, yes. So how do I take it? I take it as it's good, but not something I'd want to see every single week.
There was an advert, wasn't there? It's good, but it's not. So I can't remember what it was. I was going to say it then, but I couldn't remember for the life of me what it was.
You have me thinking now.
Do you know what it is, Just that I'm referring to? There's a famous slogan, isn't there? It's good, but it's not quite. Is it Carlin or something like that? Is it a beer?
It's good, but it's not Carlin. Yeah,
something like that. I don't know. I knew I was going for something. I just couldn't think for the life of me what it was off the top of my head. Jess, for you then, go on your kind of initial thoughts on the game. Obviously, watching it back, what did you think of it overall?
Yeah, I mean, I'd pretty much echo what Barry said. I think some games are just going to be like that. As much as we'd love to turn out week in, week out and bang 6 past the opposition, which I would like to point out we probably should have actually done. A lot of what I saw wasn't awful. I think the biggest thing, we were let down by the finishing. Some of our kind of movements and phases of play were actually pretty good. It was just a case of the amount of times we just fired the ball straight down the middle. Like, I rate Jackie Burns. I think she's pretty decent, but we made her look world class with our performance, I think. So I think there is a lot to kind of take away from that. Shooting practice being potentially the main thing, I think.
Well, you say there, Barry, this is something you mentioned, and it's something we mentioned. Well, we did a whole show on it last year. This whole shots on target to actual shots ratio that we keep having. 25 shots there, only 10 on target out of 25. That's quite a poor showing when you're facing a team like Reading. I can't remember every single one of those, I've got to be honest. I know one of them was off the bar, which doesn't actually count as a shot on target. So there's obviously that as well. But is that a bit of a worry for you, Barry? Because this is a problem, even when we're winning, 5, as Charlie said there, even last week when we won 6-0, we were sat here saying our shots still need to be a bit more accurate. We're still wasting a lot of chances. Is that a bit of a concern, and that's not changed quite yet?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. If the on target had been 16 on target, what would you make of that ratio? 25 shots, 16 on target.
if you have more, it depends. This is where we're getting into expected goals and all these kinds of things now. But I would expect if you've had 16 on target, either the keeper's an absolute worldie or you're taking pot shots from 40 yards.
Right. And the reason why I bring it up is because the maths weren't mathing. I was sat there going, hold on a minute, total shots 25, on target 10, off target 9. Last time I checked, that's 19, not 25. And the reason for that is because they also count ones that are blocked. So 6 of the shots were blocked, which shows, I think, 2 things. One, that Reading weren't exactly sitting there and just allowing us to shoot all the time. They were blocking, they were defending, they were working hard. So I think there is a mixture of 2 to be looked at there. There's poor finishing, which 10 shots on target you would hope would lead to more than just 1 goal. The other problem, I mean, the penalty will be a shot on target, but because the goalkeeper saved it, it's not going to count as a goal, obviously, because that's how the world works. But I do think that when you're looking at a defensive record like that Reading have got, we said already they're really, really good generally defensively. I don't know would be the answer to that. I don't know that I'm worried about it because we got the goal. I can remember watching a Man United men's game. I'm pretty sure it was against Sunderland, and or Stoke. It was one of the 2. They play in red and white stripes. They're not important enough for me to care. But we had about 700 shots, and I can distinctly remember being sat there, and my stepdad was telling us how rubbish we were. Look, you should be smashing Sunderland right now. You've got nothing, and we scored in the 90th minute. And the simple fact is that we wanted goal difference. Don't get me wrong. We absolutely wanted to build up the goal difference, but ultimately we needed to score. We got the goal. We got 3 points. It went in. If it was 0-0, it'd be a different conversation, I think, for a lot of people. But for me personally, no, I'm not too worried about it because our goal difference is better than anybody else's currently in the league. So can't be doing that bad.
See, I made a note, and this was one thing I was thinking while I was watching the game, because we potentially, we had the conversation before the game, is this an opportunity to get our goal difference up? And to me, it seemed like the players were kind of just shooting. It's like they weren't really concerned about winning. They just wanted to get loads and loads of goals in. So they were taking shots that they probably shouldn't have been taking. And then obviously as the game goes on, you're thinking, well, I've not scored. We need to get a goal. So then it kind of, this panic that you have kind of gets worse and worse and worse. And I mean, I play football, so I've kind of seen it myself. The further you get on in the game, the more you sort of panic. And Connor, we kind of had this conversation yesterday about Rachel Williams' goal. The thing that was so good about it is that she received the ball kind of back to her, and then she took a couple of touches to beat the defender. I think if that falls to anyone else on the pitch at that point, they're having a shot within the first touch or 2, and then that shot's being blocked. Because that's what I kind of saw throughout the whole game. There weren't that many, the opportunities that then we did have were just fired straight down the middle, to be honest. But there were a number of chances where if we'd have just sort of kept it calm, either played it off to someone in a better position, taken a touch around the defender, but instead we were just taking shots almost for the hell of it. Reading were very defensive. They got back into position very well. You can't play a ball through someone, so you can't have a shot through someone. And I think we kind of we struggled with that a little bit. And I don't know if that was because of a bit of panic, maybe seeing we should be beating this team, so we need to just sort of start firing, getting loads of balls in the box. But it did seem to be a little bit of panic.
That's going to be one of my first questions. We've already spoken for 10 minutes. But one thing I was going to ask both of you really in terms of why do you think, Jess, you said the performance actually wasn't that bad, but what do you think it was? Do you think it was complacency? Do you think that the midfield battle was a factor? The wingers, obviously, we can get into all these details in a second, but I hate pinning it on one thing because you don't lose a game because of one thing going wrong. There's a whole... lose a game. You don't perform like that and only go through 1-0 we're expecting a bigger margin because of one factor. There'll be a multitude of things there. But Jess, just throwing it back to yourself, do you think it was complacency? Do you think it was maybe the midfield, the wingers? What do you kind of put it down to, the reason why maybe we didn't score as many as we thought?
Honestly, I think it's purely just down to the finishing. So I watched the game today. I didn't actually see it whilst it was on. I watched it today, and I think that was actually quite good because I already knew the result. I wasn't really panicking, so I could properly just watch what was going on. And in the first half especially, like I say, we were kind of playing pretty well down that, especially down the right-hand side. and we had so many chances, like almost one-on-one in front of goal. And if that ball is just played into one of the corners, we get a goal. And there was probably 4 or 5 chances like that, where instead of just picking a corner and going for it, we hit it straight at Jackie Burns. And I think that's why she kind of came away looking better than she actually was. I mean, don't get me wrong, she, like I say, I rate her and she's a really good keeper, and I thought her positioning was phenomenal, and that's probably what made it harder for our attackers. But I think we finish a couple of those chances and it's a completely different game.
Barry, for yourself, I mean, Charlie's saying, you know, it was the first time she thought they looked nervous. Pressure to take the top spot again, because this is the first time we've been in this position in the past with a couple of different teams now. Obviously under Casey, now under Mark last season, we were looking potentially like we could push for second, maybe even the title and so on. How did you see it? Do you think it was complacency, nerves, or do you think, as Jess said, that the just weren't on it at all?
No, I think there is. I don't think it's complacency. I don't believe for 1 second that Mark would allow complacency after the way that he's spoken about last season and some of the games that we had. I do feel there is a bit of pressure, and Jess speaks, I think, rightly about when we're taking the shots and where we're taking them from. I don't know if you guys remember when you were younger playing football, but I can always remember it didn't matter what the score was. You could be losing 17-0, but when it was almost time to go home, it was always next goal wins. And have you ever seen a bunch of people run so much after a ball and work so hard and put as much effort in as they did for that last 2 minutes? And I think that's kind of where we were. It was just a case of shoot, do your best to score. And that's where I think the pressure was. They knew they needed that goal. I totally agree with Jess. If Katie Zellum scores that penalty, I think the second half is a different story altogether. We probably go on and get 2, 3, 4. The problem was getting the first goal. For United, that problem has always been getting the first goal. We need to get that first goal in order to feel confident. We didn't have that confidence because we're panicking and wanting the goal. Equally, the people in the ground, I should imagine, are very much doing the same thing. They know they want a goal. They know it's a great opportunity to go top. So that transfers onto the players as well. So the players know the fans are nervous. The fans know the players are nervous. We all know we're nervous, and are just sitting there going, you're not going to score past us. And in the end, it's at Rachel Williams to come on and do it. So it's definitely not complacency. I 100% put it down to the pressure. And there is going to be pressure. And this is a new type of pressure for Manchester United. It's a massively new type of pressure. It's not a pressure of a top 3. There is the chance that we are going to come out of this season with a league title sitting in our trophy cabinet. There is that chance. People can say that we're not and that we're just looking for top 3 and all of that sort of thing as much as they like. That's if we finish top 3, brilliant. For me now, that's a given. That's where we should be finishing, the situation and the position that we're in. We're in a title challenge, boys and girls. That's what we're looking for. And that is pressure. That is not a pressure that the vast majority of these players have had to go through. Chelsea have had it. Arsenal have had it. All these players have had it, not ours. And that's the thing I think they're going to have to get used to. And here's the thing. We had the pressure, and did they come through it? Yes, they did. And that's what we need to hold on to today. That's what they did.
I think you are right when you say it, because people might not think we're going to win the title. I'm still one of them. I still don't think we will, but you cannot argue the fact that that is where we are. We're in the conversation. We have to be. And I think I agree with you, Barry. I tweeted this the other day that if we don't get top 3 now, I think it will be a bit of a failure because of the position we're in. City don't look that great this season. If we don't get it from here, you know, we've still got to play them at home as well. You'd like to think that we can beat them or, you know, at the very least get a draw there. So we should keep that gap to them. But I said that last season. And then we started drawing a load of games and throwing points away in the last minute, which dropped us off. But we don't need to talk about that because it's going to be different this year. There's been a lot of chat about subs and things like that. I want to get back to that in a little bit. There's obviously some talk about Mary Earps as well. We'll talk about Mary Earps now, actually. Before we talk, I'm going to put the player of the match poll in the chat in a second. I have a feeling she's probably going to win it. But Jess, just starting with yourself, Mary Earps, we saw the tweet that obviously went out, first keeper to hit 50 WSL clean sheets, I believe that's correct. And just throughout the game, she made some keys, especially towards the end. You know, there was a chance that Reading had right to, I can't remember who hit it, but there was a chance towards the end. It was pushing out for a corner, but having that solid keeper keeps you in games like this, doesn't it? Because if Reading go 1 or 2-0 up, then I think obviously we're scrapping for a point. But the fact it stayed at 0-0 because of Earps made us, you know, believe that we could go on, obviously, and get the win as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Reading's kind of finishing was what ours should have been. And if you swap kind of Earps and the Reading keeper in the goal, like, I think it's completely different. We were, Reading were hitting those corners that United should have been hitting. It's just that we have Mary Earps, who I think is probably one of the best keepers, if not the best keeper in the world right now. And I mean, to hit that milestone, like say the first keeper to get sort of 50 clean sheets? I mean, that is insane. And I think we are just so fortunate to have her in goal, because it is players like that that will win you the game. And it's hard as well for a keeper. You have a few games that kind of where you're not called in, you don't need to do anything, but then to still come out in a game like yesterday's was and pull out some saves that then not only keep us in it, but then help us to then go on and win. I think she's insanely good, and I think we're very fortunate to have her, and we need to keep her forever.
Sorry, I was typing the player. I was trying to put the poll up. Barry, talk to me about Mary Earps.
I want to know, Connor, if you didn't say who it was because you just didn't want to have a go at saying her name, or if you just genuinely don't know who it was. Because was it that one who we were linked with?
Oh, Van Havermaet, if that's the one you're on, the Belgian midfielder.
I think it might have been her. I'm not sure.
I can't remember the shot exactly, but I just remember Mary Earps pushing it around the post on her right hand side.
Well, she actually made a fair few saves. If you look at their shots on goal and on target, they had 8 shots, 5 on target, and I wouldn't mind betting that Mary Earps saved every single one of those. For me, there's not a question who's player of the match. She's it, because had it not been for Mary Earps, we very well could have been behind before we got to the point of being able to put the ball in the back of the net ourselves. So, yeah, I think for me personally, she's just an amazing goalkeeper. There's a reason, I know there's talk about the players that Mark Skinner chooses, and I think it's a little bit harsh because some of the people he chooses, yes, they're English, but it's not something that we do very much in this country, but we need to big up the English players at the moment because they are the best in Europe. It's not a case of we're just going, we're going to have these because they're cheaper. They're the best in Europe. They won the European Championship. So to me, it's not a negative thing to have these people. And specifically, Mary Earps is just unreal. She's been England's #1 for the best part of this year. She's European champion. Unbelievable. So absolutely delighted, 100%. She is a hero. And so for me personally, yeah, Mary Earps, absolute legend. What was it that Charlie said earlier about Rachel? She's the Don. I think she should have gone Mary.
And just judging by the poll, since we put it out, already 20 votes I can see on there, I think. I'm just refreshing it now. I'm pretty sure Mary's already on about 90%. I can't see the poll anymore, which is annoying. But she was on 90% before. So I think she's going to walk away with this one. And a couple of people in the chat already agreeing with that. Welcome, John. Good to see you. 3 of Skin and Sign is playing on the player of the match. Yes, indeed. So yeah, we have. This was actually a tougher player of the match poll to pick. Not for the good reasons this week. It wasn't that we had loads of names to choose from. We were actually debating only putting 3 names on there this week. But we have gone for 4. So you've got a choice: Earps, Williams, Letitia, or Garcia to choose from on this one. But as I said, I don't think it's any question who's going to win this one. So we'll move on to the wingers then, because it's something that I do want to talk about because they had the bulk of the chances, Garcia and Paris. Now us 3 obviously debated this last week particularly on Paris's side, whether somebody else could be brought in, whether Leon could start there, or you bring Thomas in, or maybe we could shape or mix up that kind of front line. Both of them I don't think they had really bad games, but I do think that both of them are disappointed, or they should be disappointed, that they didn't come away with at least a goal between them. So Jess, starting with yourself, what do you think of their performance overall? Like I said, because Garcia's on the poll, and I think we've purposely put her on because I don't think she had a bad game in terms of her ability. I think she was always threatening, but I think she's going to be disappointed that she didn't at least get on the score sheet, and particularly Paris as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Garcia played well in terms of kind of build-up play, and in the game itself, she played well. However, out of everyone on the pitch, I thought she probably had the best chances to score. And every single one just seemed to go straight down the middle. But what I liked on that right-hand side was there was a lot of link-up play between Garcia, Honor, Tooney, Russo, and Zellum, all in Zellum, Russo, and Tooney kind of interchanging throughout the game. And I think their sort of fluidity and the way they play together works really well. However, one thing I kind of noticed that was then causing was when we press forward, we're very much always looking to go down the right. That is our kind of strong side, which makes it quite easy to defend against us in some ways. I mean, I would like to say as well that despite the fact that Reading probably had about 5 players over on that side, we were still managing to get round them with some really good one-touch passing. But we are very kind of out of balance, like unbalanced when we press forward, because we are very much looking to go down that right. And it's kind of the same defensively as well. So in the first half, they had a couple of good chances that came down our left-hand side. And I thought our defenders kind of got pulled about a bit. And the Reading players were allowed to run in behind. I don't know if there was a little bit of a lack of communication between like Blundell and Millie Turner. But going forward, we just don't seem to have a lot really to offer on that left-hand side, which is kind of concern. I think maybe if you have Leah Galton in that game, it turns out very different as well. I know we kind of mentioned it just before the show that Paris is always wanting to cut inside. And again, that just makes it very easy to sort of defend against her. And I think she's kind of struggled the last few weeks to sort of offer anything too much offensively. I know she had a couple of good chances, but as did half the team, to be honest. So I would like to see a little bit more balance pushing forward and kind of an equal amount going down that left-hand side as well. Because going into the second half, Skinner did try and change it up. So we actually started the second half with sort of Ella Toon more on the left and Paris more central. And straight away, we were then making more plays down that left-hand side. But then in putting Tooney out there, you're kind of missing what she can kind of bring to the game in the middle. So I think that's probably ultimately why he ended up taking Paris off. And that's probably, again, why he didn't take her off at half-time. Because he wanted to try kind of seeing if he could mix it up a bit and if it would work. And I don't think it did, to be honest with you.
I think that's always the key thing. Before I get on to what I was just about to say about that, I've got it. I wasn't laughing at you. Jess made some great points at the start of that, and I started laughing because I noticed this comment come up on this is my smart hair sign. You know, I've been in meetings today, so I've had to make sure it was all smart and nice. That's what it was.
I like that.
I've never seen that before, but there we are. But what I was going to say, something you said, you know, Mark's can obviously change it at halftime, and I think that's what people don't realise. I say this a lot on this channel, that managers do actually change things without fans noticing. You know, a change isn't always a substitute. It's not always, you know, noticeable like that. They change tactics halfway through a half. You just don't notice it because, you know, it's not an actual physical sub coming on and off the pitch. But as you said there, that's a noticeable change that he did try and make, and obviously it didn't work, so Paris came off. So I think that's worth noting as well before we get, because we are going to talk about the subs. Despite that, I still think there's definitely some questions to be answered, but we'll get onto that in a second. But Barry, sticking with yourself on the wingers front, as we just said there, lots of chances for Garcia and Paris, and it's a little bit disappointing. But like I said, it's I don't think they were clear cut chances. It's not like they've missed open goals and they've missed, you know, absolute sitters. But I think players of their quality will be disappointed that they've not scored.
Well, I mean, you could argue that Nikita Paris was actually, out of all of the other players, the one that came closest to scoring a goal. So there's that. You know, it's the bar that stopped her. I just think when it comes to the wingers, there's, I don't want to say a dangerous narrative, but there is a bit of a narrative that's coming around again. And I think we got to be careful not to be too reactionary, would be my point on this one. I asked you beforehand, and I'll throw it open to the comments because I'd love to know if I've lost the plot entirely. But Leah Galton, I think, is the only attacking player we've got who's left-footed. I don't think we have any other naturally left-footed players for that left-hand side. And I think that's starting to show a little bit. We talk a bit on the men's side about Anthony constantly cutting in to use his left foot when he plays on the right-hand side. And the thing is, when you're right-footed and you're playing on the left, it's difficult. If you don't trust your left foot to be able to get underneath it and get a good cross in or get a good pass in, you're naturally inclined to bring it onto your right foot, which means you've got to turn inside. Dennis Irwin was one of the best left-sided players who played using his right foot. He had that ability to still go in both directions. That's always going to be a problem unless you can master the cross with the outside of your boot that I'm sure that Jess can do without even looking. I don't know what else you would do. So it's one of those that I think is really tricky. And we're sort of judging players who are kind of playing out of position. And I think what that said to us is that we've got an absolute plethora, a clutch of players who could play the right side of attack and the centre of attack without there being too much of a problem. But we're expecting them to go onto the left-hand side of attack and be able to produce what it's not balanced. We're asking them to produce what a left-footed player like a Ryan Giggs, for example, would have been able to do. We can't compare them. You can't compare a Leah Galton with a Nikita Paris, Garcia if she was to come out there, Leon if she was to go out there, Tooney, Russo. Doesn't work because we're asking them to do a job that's not natural and not easy for them. So I think we do have to just be a little bit careful with what we're talking about. Paris hasn't been playing on the right in that situation, which is where she would feel more natural. But yet, as we saw, when the ball comes in for a cross when you're on the left-hand side and you're right-footed, what that does give you a chance to do is to get yourself a wicked half volley or volley, which you can then get towards the goal. And that's exactly what she did. So there's always going to be a lot of talk about it, and ultimately it's opinion. I know there's going to be people that think Leon should have played. I'm convinced there's something else happening because otherwise, why wouldn't you give her a go? You know, Canadian international Olympic medal winner, you would expect her to be in the conversation somewhere. But for me personally, no, I'm not overly fussed about it. I think it's much of a muchness. Without Leah Galton, you could pick any one of like 5 and then you get similar sort of results. So, yeah, I think all we're saying there, we need more balance. We need a left-footed player for the left-hand side. Shocker.
I definitely think it's right, as you said, there not to be overreaction because there's certainly going to be a thing that, you know, Paris has a bad game. Oh, well, I told you she's been awful since we signed her, and that's not true. You know, she has had good games for us. I just think at the moment, the last 2 games that I've seen her personally, I'm pretty sure everyone can agree on that. She's not been great. But as Barry, as you said, it's not her natural position. I'm not going to pretend that that's a massive thing for her, though. I will say that playing on either wing, yes, I get it. You know, which if you're left-footed, obviously you're going to be preferred to be playing on the left. But I think she could offer a bit more playing on that left-hand side, despite the fact that she is naturally better on the right-hand side. I know. Have you brought that comment up? Did you have another?
Well, yeah, just pointing out with Johnny that he was a right-footed player who started playing left back and that's why he doesn't play anymore because it's not easy to do. So,
one thing about Paris that she does really well is she works very hard when we don't have the ball. So the way she presses and basically runs defenders kind of ragged, I think that's something that will go very unnoticed a lot of the time. But I do think she does a lot in terms of pressing the ball that's really good. And it's kind of like grunt work. It's thankless. You know, nobody really notices it, but it's so important in kind of like the modern game.
Mm.
I think that's the thing.
I forgot she was player of the match last week. I mean, I don't want to bore people by going back to that, but everybody else telling us she's not had a great game, but yet she was picked player of the match. Like, I have to point it out there because somebody thought
she's obviously something, right?
I think, in answer to your question, John, right hand side, I wouldn't be playing her anywhere else, or down the middle. If you're going to change her about, it's got to be either down the middle or on the right hand side. And that's why we had this discussion on the preview about Paris on the left-hand side, and we were talking about bringing someone else in because I said it against Liverpool. I didn't think that she was that great on the left-hand side. I know what Barry just said about her getting player of the match. I personally don't agree, but clearly someone did. You know, on commentary they went
that's
for
what
it.
I'm saying.
So.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm not just sat out here on my own. You know, there was somebody else, at least one other person in the world who agreed with me, and yeah, that's the second reason why John Fry is not playing anymore.
To be fair, I was going to say I'm over half that, and I'm not playing. So there we are. But that kind of leads into the subs a little bit because I don't want to spend ages on this because we've covered this on fans forums, on other review shows, and all other things as well. But obviously, we mentioned Leon there. That's the one that sticks out to me. We could all sit here and argue, yep, the sub should have been earlier and things like that. I don't think there's any disagreement too much in some of those because 0-0 going into the 80th minute and only one change made. I think you could argue that someone should have been sooner. But Leon's the key one for me, and maybe Vilda to an extent. But as we've said before, if you bring in Vilda on, Toon is likely coming off. Unless unless you're really going for the game and you're going Tooney and Bo Risa and one of Zen and Mulada coming off, which I wouldn't have been against, to be fair, with the balance of the game, and the midfield wasn't great. But that's anyway. But Jess, for yourself, what do you think is going on there? Because I think that's the one thing that most people are agreed on, that we maybe should have made a change a little bit earlier. What would you have done differently to Mark Skinner in that situation? Would you have brought anyone else differently on? The timings, how would you have done it?
I mean, I'd have potentially, like we were saying, bring Bo Risa on, but again, maybe you have to take Tooney off for that. However, I don't know whether this would have been a good thing or not, but the way Reading were playing was they basically nullified Ladd almost completely. So she really didn't seem to do a lot all game. So I don't know if in taking her off and putting, say, Bo Risa on, that would have been a positive change, or whether she'd have equally just been kind of like out of the game, and then that would have left us more sort of vulnerable defensively. So that's potentially one that you could argue might have sort of helped us offensively. But again, we were it's not that we weren't creating, because we were. I think maybe bringing Williams on, it's hard to say you want to bring Williams on earlier, because she only needed like one moment. I felt like she was on the pitch for about 30 seconds and then she'd won us the game, and then that was it, the game over. But you see that and you think, well, why didn't we bring her on sooner? Again, I think there's maybe an argument to taking Paris off sooner. However, like I said before, Mark Skinner had adjusted the game plan going into the second half to kind of move some of the players around. And I think after half time, you go in at half time and you potentially either make a substitute, or you look at the players on the pitch and think, right, you lot are good enough to win me the game, so how are we going to tweak it? You know, you've seen for 45 minutes how Reading are playing, so you then send your players back out to kind of get around that, to get around the sort of press, because Reading were pressing very, very well. Our midfield sort of three, and the wingers did not have long on the ball at all. So I do kind of agree, send them back out in the same 11, see if they can beat that. But to me, I think you maybe bring Williams on sooner. I'd have made the sub for Paris a little bit sooner as well, because I could see straight away that in making that kind of switch of the players was then leaving us more vulnerable in other positions. So instead of being sort of more dominant down that right-hand side, we were then pressing more down the left. And then we kind of lost some of that good play that was coming from the right between Honor, Garcia and Tooney and Russo. So I think, there's an argument to make those couple of subs a little bit sooner. I don't know what you guys think.
It's an interesting one. Just Barry, before you quickly jump in, because I think the only two players else that could have come on in an attacking sense is Bo Risa and Leon. Other than that, obviously we got Thor on the bench, you got Tunkar, and you got Mannion, obviously Bagley there as well. So in an attacking sense, there's only two others that you could have used.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Leon there as well, to be honest. But that whole situation, we've kind of brushed on already, I think something's going on there. So I kind of just ruled her out as coming on at this point. Although she's named on the bench, I'm just assuming that something's probably happened and there's a reason why she's not playing, because I just don't know why else she wouldn't potentially be getting more minutes, especially in a game like yesterday's.
I think, Barry, just throwing it over to you, I think this is the key, isn't it? Because obviously we're talking about Vilda potentially coming on if we took Tooney off. It's all hindsight. Also, we could have made subs earlier and lost the game. You know, we could have made subs earlier and won 6-0. It's all hindsight.
Start stealing my points.
Is that what you were going? I kind of had a feeling that's the kind of direction you were going. But that was the point I was going to make anyway. That we don't know what could have happened.
I think the idea of taking Tooney off is a madness, an absolute madness. Right, again, I'm going to go with your question to another question. Both of you watched the game from start to finish. Martha Thomas came on. How did you feel she did in the 25 minutes that she was on the pitch, or 32 minutes? Because I believe there was 7 added minutes.
I didn't think Thomas was great when she came on. I've got to be honest.
Okay.
Well, to be honest, I just don't remember her playing. I've got to be honest.
So I was when I watched the game this evening, I was very invested in watching the first half, but by the second half, I was having to make some burgers for tea. So I don't know whether it's because I was only sort of half paying attention to the second half, or whether Martha Thomas actually didn't really do anything. But I don't actually, until you said it, I'd forgotten that she'd even kind of come on, to be honest.
So, Charlie, I know you were at the match. Can you perhaps throw something in your comments? I'd love to know, how did Martha Thomas do? And the reason why I say this is because this is what I love about opinion shows when you start doing this, because people take up these corners. They take a decision and an opinion, and then they decide not just that they're right, but they're going to dig themselves into that trench of this hypothetical system that could happen and claim it as fact. And it's not. So that's the first point I want to make. It's not fact. The second point is people were saying we might need to bring people on earlier. Martha Thomas was brought on with 25 minutes to go, which is only 5 minutes later than the traditional 60 minutes that most people on here like to tell me is the time to make substitutions. And nobody remembers her being on the pitch. Nobody thinks she'd done too much. John Fry didn't seem to think Thomas was on the pitch. So he made a substitution, and that person made that much effect to the game. The person that made an effect to the game was Rachel Williams. Now, if you want to deal in facts, this is where the facts come in. Rachel Williams came on 84 minutes. Within 3 minutes, she had taken a defence that had worked their absolute socks off to try and keep it at 0-0. And for me, are we going to talk about the goal in a minute? Is that... I'll leave that, then I won't go straight into the goal bit. But either way, Williams scores the goal. Now, the other two people you've just mentioned are Leon, who is not getting a look in for whatever reason. And even when she has been on, hasn't exactly made me go, core blimey, she's brilliant. She's been Brunesque for most of the part so far. And Vilda Bo-Risa is the other one. And we're not taking Ella Toon off for Vilda Bo-Risa when you need a goal, because Ella Toon is the sort of person who can be a wizard. She might be missing for 89 minutes, stuck having a cup of tea with Essie Russo, and then she just pops up for a minute, whops a little ball out. There you go. And that's exactly what she did. She gave it to Williams, and in goes the goal. It's all hypothetical. So I get it. I've got no problems with people saying we should have made substitutions earlier, but equally, we have to go by really what the facts were. I would argue that on this occasion, Mark Skinner got it right. And the reason why I would argue that Mark Skinner got it right is because we've got 3 points, we're top of the league, and we won 1-0. I'm perfectly willing to accept that had Rachel Williams not produced a masterclass, then 100% would be having that discussion that maybe we should have made the substitutions earlier, we should have brought more people on. I get that. So it's not an invalid position, in my opinion, for people to hold. But I'd argue that on this occasion, Mark Skinner's used the tools at his disposal perfectly, because it ended up in 3 points.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said until you said about Leon, because I agree with this. Leon has scored goals, and I also think she's done well in when she's played, albeit obviously the Sheffield game aside, because it's Sheffield. But other than that, when she has played, particularly the first part of the season, I think there is a really good player in there, and I think she has shown it for United. Well, I agree with what you said earlier, though, and I said this before, and I'll say it again on there. I think that there's got to be something with Leon that has gone on somewhere, because it's not that she's only coming on for a couple of minutes. She's not coming on at all. And I think that, to me, if you're chasing a game or you're trying to win 3 points to go top of the league, and you've got as you said, a Canadian international who's tearing it up for Canada, by the way, absolutely scoring goals for fun over there in a world-class team, not even getting any minutes at all, something has to have happened, or clearly something's going on in the training.
I was jesting about Leon being Brunesque. What I mean is she's not exactly setting the world alight for us. In the times when she has played, I mean, I don't know how many goals she has scored, but it's not any more than 3, I wouldn't have thought. So, she's done all right, but I wouldn't say, if you go Leon or Russo, you're going to go Russo, because she's another one who could just whack out a back heel without anybody paying attention, and before you know it, she's up for a puskas. Know what I mean?
I did say that to somebody. But, there we are. Sorry, I was reading that comment while I was trying to think of what to say back to you then. That's an interesting point that Carol's raised. To be honest, I wouldn't take Russo off Leon, even though, yeah, exactly that. And I think that's the point, isn't it? That there's certain players that you do kind of leave on because you never know. And I think if we'd have sat here, if we'd have lost, we'd be having a whole different conversation right now. It's the hindsight thing, isn't it?
But that's opinions for you. And what you've just put there with TJ, it's not even about defending him, TJ. I don't need to, because the man's doing the right thing. If we'd lost, like, you're going to get different opinions whichever way you go around it, and that's not a problem. But I don't feel that the negativity is fair. At the end of the day, I just, maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I am an absolute blank. But how can you be upset at a man who's put a team at the top of the league? I don't like.
I mean, prior to the season, I wasn't really convinced by him. Last few games, or well, to be fair, just as the season's gone on, I don't see what more he could actually do. Short of going on the pitch himself in a wig and banging some goals away, at the end of the day, like, what more do we actually want from him? And yeah, you can say that had Williams not gone and scored that goal, we'd be having a different conversation. But Williams did go on and score that goal, put her on the pitch. So, you know, he tried a few different things. He played around. He made subs when subs needed to go on. You can argue that Thomas didn't really do a lot, but maybe she did some stuff off the ball. At the end of the day, like, whatever he's doing is working.
100%. And that's exactly what I was just going to show. Do you know what? I don't fully. This is probably the first thing you've come up with, Sarah, apart from the fact that you also like to eat a burger with your knife and fork. This is the only other thing that I've seen that I don't 100% agree with. You can be annoyed. By all means, you can be annoyed. You can have a favourite player that you might have wanted to see play and they haven't, so you're a bit annoyed. I get people can be annoyed. I just wish it was tempered a little bit more by giving the credit where it's due as well, not just negativity. And the facts are that he's got a team to the top of the league. You know, you can still be annoyed and think there's one or two things that aren't quite right. Connor seemed to think there should be earlier substitutions. He was a little bit annoyed about that. And I get it, because 0-0, you want to see things changing up. But equally, we're top of the league. You know, I can't believe how upset we are. We were more positive last year when we were going for top 3 than we are now in some respects.
I think like how well we're doing though, because our expectations, whereas they were down here, now our expectations like up here, and that is because of how well we have been playing. You know, in some ways, the players and Skinner have brought this on themselves, because if they weren't playing so well, we out when we kind of had these. It's not even a slip up because again we won, but when we have these kind of like little dips in performance or a little dip in expectation, we're kind of jumping straight on it. But I think that does ultimately just go to show how far we have come. Because yeah, you're right. You know, we wouldn't have really been complaining about this last season. We'd have just been like, oh, you know, probably should have done a bit better, but we got the win. Or in fact, to be honest, last season we might not have bagged that kind of last minute winner. We'd have potentially been walking away with a draw, or maybe even no points at all.
I think that's the thing. Just before we get back to the football, there's a serious point here, Jess. I've got to ask you live on camera because as Barry just said, Sarah's a keen burger knife and fork eater as well as myself, and we're pushing this narrative, and we're going to keep.
I can't believe you asked this because she's already given you the answer to this.
No, but hopefully she's changed. You just said you made burgers earlier, Jess.
I did. So I literally ate a burger on the show, and you best believe I grabbed it with my hands and I piled it in my mouth. Like an absolute, oh God, there goes my pen. Like an absolute, that is how excited I was for that burger. I just shoveled it in.
That's disgraceful, that is.
It's the way to do it. It's the way to do
it. Honestly, Cheetah, this has been going. This started in the watch along for the Bayern Munich pre-season game. That's when this started. So it's been going for a good few months now. But
it's your insistence that you're right that I just can't take. It's too much for my brain.
You know, you were saying there, Barry.
People would use a knife and fork. Like, I can kind of question it when people eat a pizza with a knife and fork. Like,
that winds me up enough.
Just
that burger.
Sarah, I did a poll, do you remember? Because I got severely outvoted. I think it was like 83% to 17 or something like that.
I've got it saved somewhere.
Because I think I tried to delete it, but everyone had already screenshotted it by that point, so I just accepted defeat, I think. One day I'll have a panel where everyone agrees.
And that'll be just you and Sarah sat there together, enjoying a burger over a knife and fork.
There we go. Welcome to the channel, Karen. Everyone's been telling me that for about 6 months. There we are. I have agreed that, well, I haven't agreed to it, but everyone keeps telling me if we do win the league, I've got to eat a burger with my hands live on air, which nobody wants to see. So I don't.
Oh no, we do.
No, we
totally do.
There we go. Let's get back to the serious stuff then. Rachel Williams' goal. We've just spoken about it a little bit. I mean, just, you know, I was straight in our social chat talking about, you know, I think that is better than the goal that Barry and John come over debating. Russo's Puskas Award back heel. I think it's better in terms of just, as Jeff said earlier, you know, the composure to keep just I think anyone else, as Jess, you said earlier, hits that first time. They take a little touch on the right foot and they try and score from there. The composure's not do it once, twice, 3, 4, 5 touches and then just a hammer into the roof of the net. I mean, just unbelievable. But Jess, for yourself, that goal itself, I've kind of just stolen what you were probably going to say there. But talk to me about that goal and the kind of composure so late in the game to be able to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, she's kind of lucky to begin with. Obviously, she tries to put the ball in, it kind of bounces back to her. But yeah, to take the ball, and I mean, she's starting from a wide position and she's finishing on the opposite side of the goal. And kind of ignoring the first bit because we've covered that, the composure, insane, ridiculous. The thought as well and the like intelligence to put that kind of backlift on it to nail that straight into the top corner. Because anywhere else, and that's you've got sort of 2 defenders in front of you that can block it. So anywhere else in that goal, and that's potentially being saved or blocked. So I just thought that was incredible. And again, yeah, anyone else, they're not doing that. Potentially, it was a benefit of having someone with kind of fresh legs and less sort of fatigued, both mentally and physically, to come on to think to do that. The other players, we'd seen it throughout the game, were panicking. You could see they were getting frustrated because they weren't scoring. So I think having that ball fall to not only Williams, who was capable of doing that, but who had the sort of freshness to take a touch and just knock it round the defenders. And I mean, she sat like 2 defenders down. It was a really, really impressive finish. I think you were saying, Connor, get a statue for it, and I completely agree.
And
now for a statue.
And Cal was in agreement with me as well, you see. There's a few agreeing going on. And not so much this one. Please no, we don't. As I said on a previous show, nobody has soup over the age of 4.
Yes, they do. And we've had this conversation with you many times. Just because you don't eat soup, Connor, doesn't mean nobody else does. Normal people eat soup. It's true.
No. There we go. We're going to have to do a whole show on this kind of thing, aren't we?
What you have?
Outrageous.
There we are.
Games again.
And Carol, thanks, Charlie. Someone agrees with me. I agree with most of your football opinions, Carol. I don't agree with the way that you eat burgers, though. That's just a whole different story. But to be fair, neither does half of the planet. So, well, more than half. So there we are.
I was just going to say way more than half. 83% of the planet.
And just very quickly, Barry, before you talk about the goal, TJ, who is this Messi you speak of? Messi is what you get when you eat burgers with your hands and knife and fork. You don't get that. So there we are. Anyway.
Up there, Connor. I was sat there going, please make the joke I think you're going to make. Please.
Yeah. I was holding that. I saw that comment. I was like, I'm waiting. When can I get this in there somewhere?
Connor, I feel like I've taught you well. You're ready to go out in the world now. I'm so proud. I'm like, Rachel Williams. Let's get back to the football. But my goodness, I feel so good. That goal was unbelievable. It gave me shades of the United City goal when Rashford slid in. And I know that sounds really stupid, but if you look at the build-up, Tooney gets that ball up down the left-hand side. Rachel Williams beats her player for pace. There's point number 1, because that's not a sentence I thought I was going to be throwing out there at this point of the year. She gets in. She tries to put in a left-footed cross. And Leslie Russo's in the middle. Doesn't get to her. It's pulled back and she gets it. Now, at this point, Garnacho had done exactly the same thing. He'd done a left-footed cross. It bounced back off of a player and landed at him. Now, Garnacho had the savvy to turn and get the cross immediately in for Rashford. Williams didn't do that, obviously. She decided, well, I know what I'm going to do now. Nobody else seems to be able to have a shot, as she said. Just somebody shoot. So she was going to do it. So she knocks it wide, sits that player down. The angle's not there. And Jess has been talking about we take these shots and all that happens is it hits bodies. There's 4 bodies in front of her. She doesn't have it sight on goal. So she knocks it to the right again. Still doesn't have it. Knocks it to the right again. Still doesn't have it. So she shifts it. If she'd have carried on, she might have ended up with the fans, if I'm honest with you. But she kept going until she got that point. And I can't remember who it was who's put it on here, but somebody's put she was, she said she lifted it on purpose because of how well the goalkeeper had played. She knew everything that she wanted to do with that goal, and she absolutely did push it in. Now you're saying, is it a Puskas or it's not? I mean, it's not. No, It's not going to be one that goes on for the Puskas Award. But it's not about whether it's better than Leslie Russo's goal or not. What it's about is the composure, the experience that she brings to this team, and just how blinking well she's been playing. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's not something that anybody, I thought, would have expected from Rachel Williams when we purchased her in the summer. So for me, just an absolute delight. What a goal to win a game. I mean, she's an absolute delight. Cult hero, 100%. I'd say get the statue whether we win the league or not.
I'm just trying to work out how many goals she's actually on, because she's got to be on
3 or 4?
Fourth now, I think. I think that was her fourth. Yeah, Liverpool.
I'm
Everton,
sure I saw
Villa.
some stupid stat that she scored like 3 or 4, but in like a total playtime of about 25 minutes.
Yeah, 3 of the last 22 minutes or something like that, wasn't it?
Can't think. I'm sure I saw it on Twitter. I don't know who tweeted it, so shout out to whoever tweeted that. But if that is true, then I mean that is impressive, and like what a player to be able to bring up and win you the game in the last few minutes.
It's 3 according to BBC Sports.
Yeah, 3 in the league, 1 in the Conti, because it was the Everton 4-2 dead kind of game.
So there you go, 4 goals.
Exactly. James, that goal was Ryan Rock. Which goal did Robin score that I'm trying to think of where he did that? There's definitely one that springs to mind instantly when you said that, but I can't
Did it
think
win
of
the
it.
Puskas Award?
No.
Just saying.
And who are these people? It started with Emma Sanders tweet, and she's usually very, very reliable. So I think there's definitely some truth in it. If she's suggesting it, it was probably there's truth in it somewhere. I would probably throw that out there. But it looks like she's
the other day. I think it was other people were interested in her. It wasn't necessarily that we went, oh, I know what would be a good idea. Let's put Rachel Williams on loan. You know, if Everton turned up and went, oh, we'd quite like to take Leslie Russo on loan, and they told a journalist that's what we'd like to do, the journalist is more than likely going to put, oh, Leslie Russo could be going out on loan because somebody's asked the question. The difference is that the other team, i.e. us, went, no, thank you, because as all sensible people said, why would we loan her out? It would be madness. It doesn't help us at all. So no, it was a crazy conversation. That one.
No, exactly what you just said there is what TJ's just saying. You know, Jamie Smith is look, just because clubs are after her doesn't mean United are looking to move her out. I think that's the difference. There's a lot that goes into transfer negotiations. I'd probably expect to see 1 more outgoing now and 1 more in, maybe 2 out. You know, who knows? Carol's laughing a lot in the comments here. I think that's because we've been having a bit of back and forth in the comments about food manners. Now, as I've put in my response, I use a knife fork. That is manners. I'm not from the Stone Age. I don't use my hands. So that's my throwback to that. Carol, if you ever want to come on a show and debate this, we'll do it on a different channel because I don't think it's quite with this one. But we'll get that.
Some might argue it's more rude for you to use the cutlery because you're assuming that somebody's going to wash up after you.
No, you didn't. No.
Whereas we're just like, saving water, which is helping to save the planet.
Yeah.
No, but it's all. It just gets everywhere. Just no. Deconstruct it, and then you get the taste of each layer.
Why are you deconstructing it?
Why put towards
The very reason it's been constructed in the first place. You're deconstructed, just cook the blinking mince on its own. I can't believe you just said that. You'd be rubbish at MasterChef.
Yeah,
I just deconstruct this cake. Look, I'm going to eat a raw egg. Here's a bit of flour down there. Honestly, I cannot believe you just said that, Connor Roberts.
Well, that's why you do it, because then you break it down into little. Oh, it's just better. Tastes better like that. There we are.
Boy,
the comments
it's
gone very.
Amazing how you make me go from pride to disgust in just 2 easy steps.
Don't say that, Carol, because he will. His head will explode on Wednesday.
Very few people have disagreed with me today. I'm not being shouted at, not even by Charlie, and I was highly expecting to be taken out today. So, here I am, alive and kicking.
TJ, I don't think there's a single All for United show that doesn't do this. To be honest, I've disappointed her. I do apologise. Yeah, yeah.
I'm stuck now. I can't believe
Jess is just sitting there going, I ain't coming here again.
Now I'm my number. I'm
Really
moving.
is.
I was going to say I'll message Jess later. Blocked.
Yeah.
Won't be able to get through there. I can't remember what the last topic was now.
Man of the match.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. It's not been mentioned much, but it was mentioned in the comments. That's another penalty, right? The handball.
Oh,
You can't.
we didn't even
when
talk
a
about our
goalkeeper
penalty
saves
either.
a penalty, stick it in your hands. You can't then just go up and pat the ball like it's a baby's head. You can't do that, can you?
So somebody put this out there, didn't they?
Deliberate handball.
I saw it by a blue tick person. I don't know who it was. So again, I apologise, whoever it was. Thanks for pointing out that. But yeah, I do agree that I don't know whether Jess you've seen the video, but yeah, as you said, Barry saves the penalty, holds it in her hands, and one of the Reading players goes up and pats the ball. That's got to be a handball, surely.
I've not seen that.
Look it up after this. It's unbelievable. If you watch the highlights, the 4-minute ones, genuinely, my mind went pop. Somebody tweeted it to me, and I went, "Oh, that's quite interesting. That's clearly a penalty." I hadn't even noticed it was us, and now I'm incredulous because that should have been another penalty, and Zenny would have scored it the second time round.
No, I completely missed that, so we'll have to go back and look at that after the show.
Just on the penalty, actually, just before we look to player of the match. So if you want to get your votes in, you've got about 2 minutes, but I don't think it's going to make too much difference unless another 50 odd people vote on the poll. But there we are. But it's all for second, third, and fourth place on this one, and Maya's not got a single vote at the moment. So if somebody can vote for the CCF for us, just to get it.
Someone go and vote for it because I feel bad.
I know, I don't like having people on 0%. Someone go and vote. But Jess, for yourself, the penalty that Zalem took. Now, there's been a bit of discussion about this, that it was a poor penalty. Some say it was a good save. In initial thoughts, I said good save. Watching it back, I now think it's a poor penalty. What do you think on that one?
I'd say more poor penalty, good save. It's at pretty much perfect height for the keeper. I mean, the keeper's got to guess the right way to begin with. But there wasn't really a lot of pace on the ball. You know, if you're going to go for that placement where Zellam's aiming, you've got to put power behind it because you've got to beat the keeper, and you've got to put the corner. But I thought it was a bit weak. You know, Zellam is fantastic at set pieces, so I was really surprised. But it happens at the end of the day. Take enough penalties, and you're bound to kind of mess one up. And I think that probably helped Burns to really kind of get a lot of confidence for the rest of the game. So yeah, I'm leaning more towards poor penalty over good save. And I can see someone in the comments has said the Steph Horton version 2.0, and yeah, that was my first thought as well when I saw it.
I think just Barrett, before you jump in on that, I think it was John Commode that mentioned the point to me yesterday that since we had the conversation with good old Alan, Casey's father, that he said he hadn't only seen her miss one penalty, I think he said, or zero in the league or something like that. She's missed a couple now. I don't think he should have said that because ever since then she keeps missing. Go on.
I think penalty-wise, it can easily be broken down to it's one of those where if you send the goalkeeper the wrong way, it's a cracking penalty and everyone goes, look how calm she is, brilliant, sends the goalie the wrong way, cracking. Unfortunately, it's one of those where if the goalkeeper guesses the right way, then you look like a bit of a dope. And sadly, it was that one. She's been brilliant at penalties. I can't knock her too much, but if you're going to put it at that height, you have to send the goalkeeper the wrong way. And Zelly didn't and paid the price for that. But you could see after it happened how annoyed and distressed she was. You know, she wasn't exactly sitting there going, oh, well, never mind, let's crack on. You know, she had her head in her hands. She knew that could have been a really important turning point. But, you know, I think that's one moment, one kick. You know, Lucia Garcia had a shot that just hit a player, you know, that was just blocked. So, you know, it's sad, it's annoying, but people are going to miss penalties. You know, you can't go through life scoring every single penalty. It's just not going to happen.
No, and you don't want a team that relies on getting penalties to win games either.
But it should be a penalty afterwards.
100%. Me and Carol are back on the same page. She's agreeing with me now, so that's good. We've ended the show on a positive note. Just very quickly on this one, question for the panel: do you think we're going to see any of our new talents playing some soon? Jade's still injured, I think, or she's just recovering from injury. She's back on the playing surface, back on the grass, so to speak. So she's probably going to be too much longer. As for Estelle, I really don't know. She's only on loan, isn't she? So you'd expect to see her at some point.
I'd quite like to see her as a sub in the game next week. Get to come on, integrate.
She might be more as I think they're both going to be used as just cover with the games that we've got coming up. I think it's just more just in case we get injuries, as we saw last season in centre half. You know, we got a couple of injuries and Zelen was back there. So
is this still centre mid?
She's a centre back, but she's coming in apparently as to play midfield. But if Lisa comes in as well, we've got another midfielder, which is what makes me think that we've still got one or two on the way out.
Who knows?
So it's a bit of a mystery on that one, but we shall see. I'm on the wrong tab. Sorry, 2 seconds. There we are. I was looking at someone else there. She's still to be met. Yeah, I think we might see. I don't think it'll be in the next couple of games anyway. It's a shame, really, because I'd like to have seen them against Sunderland. That's the kind of game where you bed your new signings in, don't you? But it's one of those. We will be back doing transfer shows soonish because the window is shortly approaching closing as well. Right, let's get on to player of the match then. I'll look at the poll in a second to see who everyone has voted for, but I think we're going to have a clean sweep on the panel here. Jess, who did you vote for and why?
I went for Marriott purely because I thought that she was probably the biggest difference in this game. And without her, I think it's a different story. And I think not only are we probably not going to win, but I think we're potentially walking away with no points from that game if we don't have her.
Barry?
I voted Hayley Ladd, but I was told she wasn't allowed in the top 4. No, I'm joking. I saw Hayley Ladd mentioned as a potential player of the match, so I put that in as a potential player of the match and was laughed out of the building. So, no Hayley Ladd on that one. It was Mary Epps. I mean, I said it at the beginning, player of the match for me, and I completely agree with everything that Jess just said.
Yeah, and clean sweep for me. Again, as has been said, kept us in the game. We don't want to win that, I don't think, if Mary's not in goal, because we probably are 1 or 2 down by the time Rachel comes on and scores that goal. So, yeah, I think that's, as Carol was saying there, yeah, all day long. And judging by the pot, I can't actually see it. Can anyone tell me what the percentages are? I can't even see it.
Well, not now that I've come out of it, but I did vote for me.
Earps is on 74%, Garcia 9%, Letizia 6%, and Rachel Williams 11%. So shout out to whoever voted for Maya there. That was really nice of you.
You're welcome.
Got it in at the end there. People are going to say that's manipulation right there. I've manipulated the poll. I told people to vote for her.
The person who was in 4th place to remain in 4th place, yes.
Yeah, I don't think it would have made too much difference. I mean, Mary Earps has really run away with it there on 74%.
It's hardly an American voting scandal, is it?
No, I'd like to have a vote for everybody, at least one, because it was tough. But yeah, Mary World Clap for sure. But there we are. Right, we shall wrap it up there. We'll be back on Wednesday night, where Baron will be back. Hopefully, Charlie will be back on Wednesday as well. We are the main course at the top. I think we've already decided, haven't we, Barry? It's going to be Mark Skinner's contract and whether we're going to exercise the option. Obviously, because his contract is up come the summer with the 1-year option that we could extend. So lots of talking points around there. Obviously, I'll leave Barry to what we're going to do on Wednesday night, but it's going to be a normal fans forum. If you think this goes off piece a little bit, you want to watch a fans forum show. Be a bit more of that. We're professional over here. That's what it is.
If it's entertainers, yes. We're like WWE. We're not real pundits. We're just pretending.
Thanks to Jess and to Barry for coming on. Thanks all for in the comments. TJ, Sarah, Carol, Sporty, everyone that's just sort of who I can see on screen right now, but everyone else who has commented over the last hour or so. Make sure you're liking the video and subscribing. Make sure you check out the men's channel. They are live right now discussing the Arsenal game. Obviously, disappointing loss there, but we've got to talk about it. So make sure you go and check that out because so much to discuss from that game. One late winner, one late goal conceded to lose us the game, but there we are. So yeah, make sure you go and follow that as well. And we shall see you in the next one.